Well, happy Saturday to everybody. It's Saturday, December 20th, and we're almost at the end of 2025, which honestly couldn't come any sooner because I'll tell you, and you know already, this year has been a bit of a doozy, and I'm kind of over it. So probably noticed that my background is a bit different, and that's because I'm not at home right now. I'm actually in Palm Desert and about 2.5 hours away from home, and actually here for my annual retreat that I do in December, where I go and do random things in the desert cities region, whether it's riding a motorcycle places or trying new food or anything of the sort. But this year, I decided that it's best for me to explore this place in a different way. And in by doing so, I ended up discovering some pretty cool stuff while I've been walking through here. And this is the fourth installment of me doing this. And I'll go into it a little bit more later. But yeah, I'm off site right now. And it feels pretty good because this day has been me absolutely doing so many random things that I wouldn't be able to do if I were at home, which is kind of the point of a vacation anyway. And for this particular uh, vlog, and I'm hoping that all of this records well, but I'm actually trying some new equipment right now. And I'm currently wearing a Hollyland wireless microphone. And, after doing research and just seeing all other material that's been put out there online, is that this particular type of microphone is very popular with the vlogging and creator community. And so this was just something that I've acquired recently that hopefully, with whatever I'm doing, is going to enhance the quality of my vlogs. Now, obviously, production value is really low for these because all I do is sit here and talk based on whatever notes I write for myself. But, you know, whenever anyone creates anything, it's really for the sake of the person who's creating it. How it ends up, how the public or whoever is indulging in any of this is reacting is all up to them, because ultimately, when we create things, when anyone creates anything, is that we do it for ourselves. And yeah, we might take a few requests and maybe some suggestions, but ultimately we are doing it for ourselves. And I appreciate the people who watch this in retrospect and listen. Obviously, I tend to do these at off hours, unscheduled and usually unscripted. And that is the way that I choose to do these because it's the best way for me to just kind of get my thoughts out there, and stream of consciousness style of vlogging seems to work best for me. So that's why we're doing this here in Palm Desert in my Airbnb, with that surprisingly has pretty decent uh, you know reception, or actually well, internet speeds. I haven't had any lags lately. Regine, it is nice to hear from you. I hope Germany is treating you nicely. Um, it's it's quite nice here currently in Palm Desert. I'm looking at about it's probably about 70 degrees outside. It's actually colder than it was yesterday. Yesterday it was in the upper 80s, and I'm talking Fahrenheit here. And but it was very nice, and a lot of people were out and about doing whatever they were doing. So that was really cool. Uh, and yes, if you are ever back in California, this is a great place to consider visiting, especially for the peace and quiet. It's definitely a huge contrast from what you saw in Los Angeles. I think that's probably the reason why there's many people who find their way here from LA. I talked to quite a few people in the last day and a half who've talked about how they ended up relocating to this part of California after spending a lot of time in LA. And obviously, there are many reasons why one would move. And I find it interesting that I find myself in that kind of random thought about moving. Uh, and for those who are tuning in, my friend Regine, I have to say, I have to give her a shout out because she was actually a friend that I met through Airbnb, as in she was actually one of my guests a couple years ago when she came here solo to Los Angeles and not knowing exactly what to do, but we ended up building a bit of a friendship as a result of her 3 weeks staying with me in my house. And so it's really cool that over the years I've had the chance to keep her updated on what's going on in the world, at least my world. And for those who are geography buffs, if you are looking for what weather in Germany is like, if you want to compare it to a section of the United States, the best way is compare it to Ohio because they're the same latitude. So that also explains the reason why there's a lot of Germans in Ohio because there's a lot of similarities in terms of the weather, the climate, and all that stuff. So that's just some little aside there I had to throw out there, but it's always good to see that you know thanks to the power of social media and the internet that we can all stay in touch somehow. So I'm always grateful for that. But I will say this week has been a doozy. I usually try to delay these vlogs until I get to a place where I've got a lot of material, and boy, do I have a lot of material. It's not like I have a time limit as to how long I would be doing any of this, but I will say that going into the end of Monday, which was the end of my driving for this particular week and the beginning of my week off of work, I technically have 9 days off of work, which I am so glad for because I'll tell you, this driving's a doozy. I'll address it later, but just so much of it going on. Had to start the beginning of this vacation time with unfortunate news. So, for those who are aware of my personal rats, one of my rats, Mr. Gyoza, retired this week. We don't like to say died in my rat world. He retired from service this week at the dear age of 2. He was a good boy, and unfortunately, it's one of those things that comes with old age. Mind you, too, is if we think about the lifespans of rats, the average age of a rat, if they are in decent health, is usually like lifespan is about 2 to 3 years. So any rat that makes it to 2 is actually in a good place. And Gyoza had a very brief illness. Usually, the things that take out rats when they're older, usually it's heart failure, especially if you're really good about making sure that they're not dealing with any upper respiratory infections. So that unfortunately happened with Mr. Gyoza. So I'm down to 2 boys that I personally own, and they're keeping each other company. But I could tell before I left on this trip on Friday morning that they were still, for the most part, depressed. And that's the thing with rats, is that they're extremely empathetic creatures and they know loss. Um, One of the things that you try to do with any animal, if their companion passes, is that you give them an opportunity to um, smell the body of the animal that passed, so that they understand that yes, this was my friend, and yes, my friend is no longer living. They actually understand that stuff. So it is actually very important, especially with rats, if possible, to ensure that they are able to um, smell the body before it is removed from the cage. So yeah, poor Gyoza, he did what he could to, because when I found him, he was sleeping as close as he could to the area where he would normally snuggle with his friend. And so I found him not in distress. He basically just went to sleep and didn't wake up, which is, I can only praise, probably the best way to go for a rat, because rats are stubborn creatures. They are. And sometimes you have to help them out because they will do everything in their power to survive. So I'm just glad that I didn't have to take the extra step and get assistance, if you know what I mean. So that was one thing. In addition to that, preparing for my trip, I did have to attend a funeral right before I left. So this was the day before. And this was one that I really was hoping that I wouldn't see for a while. But did have to happen. So this is a human now. So I first had to start with the rat. I guess that was a warm up if the universe decided to be like that. This one was a human, and this was a person who I'd known for more than 20 years. And I will say that it's very sobering when you realize that I'm now at this age where if people start to go, um, it's just another cycle of life at this point. And I'll talk a little bit about this person. This was his name was Will Chiang, and he was a classmate, or rather a schoolmate of mine at USC. And we met in undergrad, and not because we were taking the same classes, because USC is a huge school. He was in a different major than I was. But we met because of our student worker positions at the Marshall School of Business when I was there as an undergrad, working in the Marshall Technology Services Department. And he was hired, I want to say 1 or 2 semesters after I was. And he came in, and he was a person who definitely had a very larger than life personality, always wanted to get things done, very assertive, um, was really passionate about photography, which he continued into his professional work too. He ended up going freelance many years into the future here. And this was a person that I kept in touch with over the years. I mean, we weren't super, super close, but I know I would see things on Facebook, of him doing all sorts of photography gigs. He would still get opportunities to do work with the university, all sorts of things. He was a very involved Trojan, and like me at one point, he had a huge, and he still did until the day he passed, a huge loyalty and a love for the University of Southern California. And it was very clear during his memorial service that we had that he was very much loved by many, many people. And, you know, he definitely lived his life to the fullest. It was in the last couple of years that he got sick, and I got to see him a few times. I got to see him before he got sick, and I also got to see him while he was battling what he was battling through. And one of the things that was really cool about him was that, with everything being as difficult as it was, he wanted to use his time to continue to remind people that, we only have one go at this, and to do what you can to enjoy the people that you are with, and enjoy life to the fullest that you can. And I know we get told this a lot, but it's only when it hits home like this that you still have that ongoing reminder, and it gets heavier. But I am glad that I was able to go, and that I was able to see him off. And I'm glad he's not suffering anymore. The last time I talked to him was actually 2 weeks before he passed away. He had undergone a surgery, and what had happened was I didn't have a chance to see him because I needed to go to LAX to pick up two people, non driving, like professional. It was actually two friends that were flying back from Japan. But what had happened was I was actually uh, commissioned to assist with a printer installation at the hospital that he was recovering from at. He had just finished his surgery, and I knew that he did. Found out on social media because that's a powerful thing, and so just on a whim, I called him and he answered. He picked up his phone, and I said, "Dude, you won't guess where I am right now." And for all I knew, I was probably maybe just a few floors away from him. And it would have been nice if I actually did have the time to go see him and to just surprise him. I know that's unfortunate, but I am very grateful that I did have that one last conversation with him before he passed. We were just talking about some USC time, and that, he reminded me to, appreciate the connections and the relationships that I do have with people. It was a good conversation. He was really, happy that he got through that surgery. That was probably one of the scariest things that he had to go through. Um, at least from what I understood as to what he was dealing with, among other physical issues he had. It was actually a tumor that was in a very, very dangerous portion of his spine. And according to him, it was successful and they were able to remove it. So, whatever happened after that, whatever, we don't know. The body does weird things. And sometimes, when it's your time to go, it's just your time to go. And, but, from the last few things that he did prior to the surgery, I think that he was able to do many of the things that he wanted to accomplish before he moved on to another time of his existence in this universe. So wherever he is right now, I'm just glad that he made it as far as he did, and that he used all the time he had in a way that I think one of the greatest gifts he gave us was the wisdom that came from all of it. I would have rather had him here because there's just way too many people who, loved him very much. I wish he were still here, but we do not know what the universe has in store for all of us, and so we just got to do our best every day, and I hope that we all do. So, with that said, um, that was an interesting memorial service. It was a good memorial service. I will say, if there was any poetic justice to any of this, was that he was buried at Rose Hills, which I realized after some sleuthing that it's the largest memorial park slash cemetery in the entire continent of North America. I did not know that until today. It was also one of those things where he, he was buried at the absolute end of the property. It was almost a mile and a half uphill to get to where his resting place was. And I did have to help with directing some traffic. Parking in typical Los Angeles fashion, even in a memorial park, was annoying, and there was construction. So if there's anything, he wasn't allowed to leave Los Angeles without getting a reminder of that. And his love of Mexican food and all things Mexico, it was very fitting that in the background, in the distance of, there was another memorial service in progress, and we could hear the blaring of trumpets and singing from a mariachi band. And it was just one of those things where you kind of sit there among everyone dressed in black, some of us with USC regalia, which I did pull something out, out of respect. One more time, all my stuff's in storage for obvious reasons. And but it just seemed like there was so much like symbolism with that service that you couldn't help but to crack a smile knowing that he he got that send off, and that was really cool. So yeah, if you ever end up at Rose Hills for any reason, that is a huge place, but it does have that sense of serenity among all the chaos that surrounds it in Los Angeles. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, after that service, I needed some therapy. So I headed to the closest IKEA to Rose Hills, which was actually in the city of Covina, and got some late lunch and needed to pick up stuff in preparation for my trip here to Palm Desert. Well, what happened was, and I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, is that part of my itinerary here in Palm Desert was to attend a Coachella Valley Firebirds game, which I am wearing that hat. This is from their inaugural season, and I have been following the Firebirds since they started in 2022. They are in their fourth season of existence in the American Hockey League. And the very first game I attended, I believe, was the third game that they had ever played inside of the Acrisure Arena. And that their parking, they still have not figured it out. I'll go into that in a bit. But I had to go there, and I would like to say thanks to Paula for the birthday gift card to IKEA because I did end up using it. I had to get some stuffed animals as part of my purchase thing at IKEA because it was the teddy bear toss game. And if you haven't been to a teddy bear toss in any level of hockey, be it college or minor league, it's an insane time because people are coming in and you have to see these stuffed animals just rain on everything. And the massive game delay, I'll go into that in just a bit. But after my post memorial service dinner and getting all that, it was the slog of traffic from Covina. It took me about an hour to get back so that I could get 3 rats out of my house in the form of the final rat adoption of 2025. So, switching gears a little bit here is that because we are at the end of the year, one of the things that I do from a animal rescue perspective is I try to make sure that any animals that are being dealt with during the holiday season are not subject to a impulsive decision. So one of the biggest issues that many um, animal rescues have to deal with is that there are still people out there that still consider that giving animals as gifts, which is always a bad idea. I won't say usually a bad idea. I think it's always a bad idea. Ultimately, it's because sometimes when you give a gift like that, they don't see it, the person receiving the gift doesn't see it coming and they might not be ready for it, even though it might have been something on their mind. I truly believe that if you are going to acquire an animal of any sort, that it needs to be a decision that has to be made methodically, mainly because of all the preparation involved. It's also one of the reasons why at my rescue, I do have a requirement in that anyone who is interested in adopting an animal needs to have a cage ready to go prior to the adoption. So I have to clear them. That means that, you can't just say, I want a rat and I let you in. So as a result of this, it has been a tradition at my rescue for as long as I've been able to do so that we stop all adoptions. We have an adoption freeze beginning in the middle of December until January 1st of the following year. So basically, starting December 18th of this year, there are no adoption appointments available until after January 1st, 2026. And that is really to protect those animals and also to give me a damn break. I know, Regine. I know you're like 9 hours ahead. I don't even know why you're still awake right now, but thanks for listening. This will be available for replay later, so don't worry. If you want to catch up on this, I will. I'll look forward to catching up with you soon. So anyway, back to the whole thing about this adoption thing. Well, this is something that actually has worked extremely well, and we have had no rats that have been returned to us as a result of a holiday adoption. I take pride in that. Like I said, we have to. It sounds like well, wouldn't it be negative because you're not getting any rats out? At the same time, I think of it being it's a positive because I don't get rats out for the wrong reasons. So that's where that is. So anyway, the final rat adoption of 2025 was very cool. It actually started as a surrender. And here's what happened. So I had a family about 2 weeks ago who contacted me and said, we have a little bit of a situation. We went to a pet store in Yorba Linda, which, funny enough, happened to be a reptile shop right across the street from a school that I used to teach at, like 6 years ago, which I'm kind of laughing about. And what happened was they went over there to go get a couple rats so that they could have them as pets. No problem. I mean, they didn't know about us, and that was easy. Well, apparently, this uh, reptile shop sold them very, very small rats and didn't even bother to make sure that they were the same gender. So this is where our problem starts. So anyway, these rats are in the care of this family for a couple weeks. But then they realize that there's something wrong with one of them. Something wrong with one of them. And it turns out that one of them grew testicles and it was a boy. And so I get contact and saying, hey, here's the story. When we went to a pet store, we got two young rats and they grew up a little bit. And then we found out that one of them had parts that the other one didn't. And I go, okay, well, yes, you may bring them over. So they did. And they were very cute little guys. One of them was named Sugar and the other one was named Cookie, which I'm like, okay, this is cute. And of course, the children were very sad about it. And they also didn't want to return them to the pet store that they got them from because they were basically what they're going to do is they're going to restock them and they're going to get fed. Well, obviously, we're not going to let that happen. Well, it also turned out timing was perfect that right after I acquired them, I was going to get a group of rats from a person in Riverside who had an oops litter and was preparing to give all the babies to me once they were mature enough to leave their mom. So what happened was they come in, they give us the rats. I marked down in the transfer form that we use that the male is going to be integrated with appropriate number of baby males, and the female will be returned once I find the proper pairing from the group of babies that were coming in from Riverside. And so here's what happened. We get this group of babies from Riverside. And so several of them are boys. So we integrate them with Mr. Cookie and Sugar, who's the female. She gets integrated with 15 other girls. And we then play the waiting game and see, okay, which ones are you going to be playing with the most and which ones are going to be your friends. So I said, okay. We play the waiting game, and a couple weeks later, I get a message from them asking, "Hey, how's Sugar doing, and how's Cookie doing?" Well, the good news is that Cookie got adopted, and he went home with 3 other rats. One of those rats being a larger one, who was acquired from a shelter. Now, I have to go on an aside on this one, because that gentleman who got acquired from the shelter was delivered with another rat in 2 separate carriers by Uber from the LA County Animal Shelter in Chatsworth. I'm not even kidding. A volunteer who donated the transport fees for this one used the Uber transport function on the feature, and the driver transported the rats by car to me directly. I didn't even know that was a thing. Now that's a thing. So I'm not surprised that that becomes an option in the future because, hey, reason why that volunteer did that was to make sure that another friend would not be subjected to needing to ride in the car and then ride back. It was actually a money saving option. But the driver thought it was pretty cool. He drove up. It was an Uber driver. So, I mean, I'm an Uber driver too. So I was like, okay, what's up? And he was very happy, just like got out of the car, quietly and gently pulled the 2 carriers out and handed me the boys. And I was like, here are your rats. And I go, that's cool. Okay. So that was fun. So anyway, one of those boys did go home, and then so did Cookie, and so did 2 boys from that Riverside group. Well, later on, I get a message. It's like, okay, how's Sugar doing? I said, well, Sugar is ready to go home, and I have some good news and some bad news. He goes, okay, what's the good news? The good news is that she found a friend, and yeah, she's playing with her, and they're really hitting it off, and they're friends. Okay, that's great. What's the bad news? She has 2 friends. Now, for those who are rat people, the difference between 3 rats and 2 rats in your care is 0. Of course, I just had to remind the mom that. But so what happened was we go back to that whole IKEA situation after the funeral. And it took me an hour to get back. Well, that's what was waiting for me when I got back was the family, and we went in. We got the rats. They got to play with them. The kids were so happy to have their little sugar back, and the two friends. So that was the story of the final rat adoption of 2025. It ended as weirdly as my year has begun, with something random, but I can only hope that it turns out cool in the end. So that was pretty cool. So then Thursday's just crazy, right? I'm thinking in my head, I'm finished with all of this. I'm going to take a break. No, that's not happening. I had a championship game that night to play in hockey. And I will say, I am so glad that this game went down during my vacation week because I have to go into what happened to me the previous week in the playoffs to be able to get to this championship game. So what happened was, because the game was at 10:20 p.m. on a Thursday night, mind you, I drive on Thursday. That's my first day of work, my first day scheduled. So what ends up happening is that I had to alter my sleep schedule so hard that, well, it was successful. Obviously, we won because that's what got us to the championship game. But basically, my shift was from 4 a.m. to 12:30. So I run that shift, which, without this going into a 2-hour session, that was its own adventure. And if you want to read about that, I would suggest subscribing to my Substack because that's where it is. I do have a full thing about that Thursday. So I finished that shift. I get out of work, and I had to make the decision that I needed to eat dinner. Dinner, okay? Not lunch. It's dinner, lunch and dinner at 2:30 p.m. I was in bed by 3:30 p.m. with a wake up time about 8:30, 8:45 p.m. That's how much needed to be altered in order for me to make a 10:20 p.m. game. So I wake up at 8:30, 8:45-ish. I'm thinking in my head, you know what? I think I need a Thai tea. So on my way to the rink, I head over to Ding Tea, which is still open at the time. And I go get my Thai tea, and then I head to the rink. I do my prep and everything else. And we play this game, and we win this game, and we're heading to the championships. And it was just great to feel that way because my team is moving up a division after all of this time. I have been in what they call the Blue Steel division in this 4-on-4 small rink format league. And I have been with this team since I think the second or third season of its existence. And we are now finally being promoted because of division realignment. And as a result of that, we're also moving days that we're playing. So we're going from Thursday to Wednesday with occasional spatterings of Tuesday games. It's weird. And there's actually more teams in this league, like division, than there were in the division that we are leaving. So that got a little crazy. But anyway, so we make it to the championship game. Thankfully, weekend, week passes. I'm on my vacation, which means my personal schedule is back to normal, sane times. And so the 9-10 game that I played on Thursday, I got to be normal. And that also meant that I wasn't completely zonked after getting those rats out the door and probably having maybe 35 minutes to rest before heading to the rink. And since I can be a creature of habits sometimes, I did have to go get another Thai tea on the way to the rink, just to stay awake, a little bit of shot of coffee there, or caffeine rather. And so get to the rink, dress up. They give us the smallest locker room there. So we're pretty much like stacked on top of each other trying to put our gear on. But we got out to the rink, we start this game, and I was thinking that this was going to be a doozy of a game. It was. This team was really determined to win. I would hope so if we all made it this far to a championship game. And the other team scores on me first. And it was one of those weird ones where the play was behind the net, and somehow I lost track of it and it hits me in the back of the skate and into the net. Now, thankfully, for a while, that was actually, thankfully, that was the only goal they'd score on me that entire game. I got kind of mad, and my team did too. And we proceeded to tie it, and then they scored a second one, and they scored a third one, and they scored a fourth one. And I mean, it was not a walk in the park for me. There were quite a few defensive plays I had to make. Many of the saves that I made weren't really technically saves at all. It was me intercepting the puck before they could reach it and shooting it away from danger or up the boards. So I did a lot of puck play in this game, which was very odd. But we did finish with a 4-1 win to close out our time in Blue Steel. And that's is our second overall championship in this division. The last one we won was more than a year and a half ago, about a year ago. So that was a very nice thing. It was crazy to think that I technically only played 6 games this season as a result of multiple injuries that I've had this year. I have to say, 2025, aside from professional injuries, i.e., getting laid off, aside from emotional stuff going on, I also had to deal with a bunch of physical stuff. And I will say it is nice to know that I can survive these things and get through them. But I will say, having my season, that this particular season reduced to only 6 games, but still being able to pull this off was a very nice thing. So I'm very happy about that. Um, you know, and unfortunately, because the new season's beginning on January 6th, that's definitely going to put a damper in my plans of returning to the team for a while because of my work schedule. Um, but one thing that I am grateful for, and I mentioned this in another podcast or vlog or whatever you want to call these things. I don't even know what the hell these are called anymore. This is called stream of consciousness until I feel like I'm done talking, which, obviously you can tune in or out as you like. But one thing that I always appreciate about them is that this team, and this is one of the first teams or one of the only teams that I've had in my 30 years of playing that do not willfully choose to abandon or dump me if I'm not available to help them out. In several teams over the course of my 30 years of playing, I have been dropped due to unavailability instead of being put on a shelf and then, called upon later. I've been fired from teams, even though I've always had a, track record of being that dependable person who will always be at the game if I say I'm going to be at the game. But apparently, that kind of loyalty does not go far with some people. But for my team, the fact that they're just telling me, once you get that schedule fixed, we'll see you later. We have a bunch of subs. We have a dedicated sub. You're going to be okay. And there's not a single inkling that they're going to drop me. And to bring that point home, like I said, I have been injured at least twice, and on top of my work schedule being complete garbage, that I have full faith that I will be able to return to that team when we go back, when we resume our next season up in the Tin League on Wednesday nights. So I'm very grateful for that. So, I'm going to just pivot a little bit here. And I think this is probably going to be one of the longest vlogs that I've done, actually, probably ever. But I figured, I'm on vacation. This gives me time to write up a few notes and actually think about what I want to say, because a lot of the stuff that I do is off the cuff. This one is probably partially off the cuff. Like, I actually have a list of things I wanted to mention while I was here. And so I think I'll focus on today and as I like to call, the Palm Desert section of Highway 111. So the area that I usually stay in when I do these annual trips is usually in the Palm Desert region. And the reason why this annual tradition started was it was a result of work. So if we go back about 4 years, And this is something I still do. I still cover varsity high school sports and I film sports. But one year I was requested, if I was able to cover the entire tournament run for Santa Monica High School while they were in a basketball tournament in Palm Springs. And this involved having a videographer on site to travel to the various high schools based on their schedule and film every single one of their games. This was a pretty big one because I was being paid additional per game for this, but also as a result of this, I needed to be in Palm Springs region, and I call Palm Desert Cities region. Okay, I was moving around a lot, and I was driving a car at the time, but I needed to be down there the entire 4 days. So I was actually there for 4 days. And it was during the holidays. It was actually the week after Christmas. So it was the weird gap between Christmas and New Year's that I did this the first time around. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, well, at the time, I had just started my Airbnb. I became a super host and I was given an Airbnb coupon to use on myself, which is one of the perks about being an Airbnb superhost is that if you're able to maintain superhost status for 4 straight quarters, you get a coupon that you can only use on yourself for $100 toward any lodging or experience that you want to do through Airbnb. It's pretty cool. And so, to help with the overall costs of my time down there, and also because a part of it was going to be reimbursed, but we needed to keep everything somewhat reasonable, um, I used that coupon on this 4 day stay. And I found an Airbnb in the Palm Desert region, which was surprisingly really, really nice. I mean, this was probably the most extravagantly Christmassy house I've ever seen, both inside and out. It was a pretty cool one. And I spent my 4 days there. I had my own room, I had the Wi Fi, I had all this stuff going on. It was really, really cool. And I said, okay, cool. And it became a thing. And because I had so much downtime in between all of these basketball games, because some days there were 2 games, and a couple of the rest of the time, it was like 1 game a day for them to play. So I had a lot of time to explore the Desert Cities region. I didn't go too extreme to the point like I would go out to like Joshua Tree because it takes like an hour to get up out there, from the Palm Springs region. But I spent a lot of time popping around Palm Desert, Palm Springs, Rancho Mirage, all of these areas, and just seeing what was going on in these areas, and just wondering, getting these questions answered, going, why are so many people really considering moving to this area? And it was a very nice time. One of the things that I always appreciate about this area is that it isn't overcrowded. It is extremely rare that you're ever going to run into a traffic jam unless it was an accident. And it's really a slower pace, but not to the point where it's like Midwest level boring, but it is a slower pace because there's less people. And yes, there are casinos, lots of casinos, and they're all Indian run, which means slot machines, right? So you have that going on. Anyway, I came to that realization that I kind of like doing this in the middle of in December. Well, because the weather's perfect. Usually Palm Springs is triple digits until about September, October. And by the time you get to December, it gets down to somewhere between 60 and 80 degrees during the regular day, and it can drop as low as the mid 40s at night, but it's not as frequent. So I made it a thing that every year I would reserve that somewhere between the last half of December, I would find a weekend out here. And to add to the fun, I also threw in that I would time it with a Coachella Firebirds game, and as of late, a Barry Manilow concert. So another thing too that people don't realize about Palm Desert, or at least the Palm Springs, etc., et al. Region. I don't even know what the official designation is that Barry Manilow lives here. This is his hood. And what he has done for the last 14 years, so every 2 years he does this. He does a series of 5 concerts at the McCallum Theater, which is the Center of the Performing Arts for the College of the Desert, and it's in Palm Desert. And every year he'll do a series of 5 concerts, and all these concerts are completely for charity. He does not take any money for these. I mean, these concerts are literally in his backyard. And so what he does is he takes no money, but all of the proceeds from the ticket sales end up going to multiple charities. I've heard at one point up to 25 different charities, like spread out across the entire Coachella Valley. And it's a pretty cool concept. And the other thing too is because it is Barry Manilow, this guy does not cut corners on any performances he has done, and this dude's in his 80s. I will say, I went to A Gift of Love 6, which was 2 years ago. So that was in 22, no, 23. That was in 2023. And I will say that based on what I was watching and based on what he was doing that particular year, his performance was identical to the CBS Christmas special that he did right before he did A Gift of Love. It is the quality of the performance. He does an entire 90-minute concert. It is, from what I'm understanding, identical to what he does at Westgate. The difference is that the money you spend on the ticket does not go to Westgate. And I am completely okay with that. It's also nice because it's a more intimate space, and it's closer than Las Vegas. I don't have to worry about paying for parking. It is not a pain in the ass to get there. And, I have seen Barry Manilow twice before. So as soon as Gift of Love 7 was announced through the Barry Manilow fan club, the first thing I did in March was purchase the tickets. I was not going to let that one go. And this was like all of the stuff that I'm talking about, everything I've set up from the Airbnb behind me to all of this. This was all set up long before I ever got laid off from USC. And one of the things that I made sure for myself this year was that I was not going to allow this year to fuck me over completely. Seriously, and as I mentioned, my friend passing away and everything like that, it even just, the impact of that was even harder. And it was more like, you know what, we're going to do this because I'm not going to spend 2026 being bitter about the fact that I didn't do what I wanted to do in 2025. It's just not going to happen. So that's where the whole Barry Manilow thing came in. And also, admittedly, and probably the reason why I'm severely single is that I am a huge Barry Manilow fan. He is one of my favorite artists. My Spotify playlist is full of Barry Manilow. And not just like the basic songs that everybody knows. I'm talking about the obscure shit too. He's just one of those people that I just enjoy having sing to me when I am in my car contemplating my life choices. Okay, it's that's my thing. I am also a huge Josh Groban fan, who is also second on my list. Not in no particular order technically, but Josh Groban is another one. And I will say, I know I'm half joking about the reason why I'm single is because I'm a Barry Manilow fan. I will say that people that I have prospected as potential, companions in my life, big red flag. If you start making fun of me over my music choices and the fact that I can razor you and name that tune, because most of my musical knowledge is from the 70s and the 60s, you can go burn in hell. Just saying. So that's going to be me tonight at 8 p.m. I'm still debating if I want to put on all my shit and ride my motorcycle over there, or I might just be bougie and get that Uber and just drive me 2 miles to the McCallum Theater. That's also the other reason why I like to stay in Palm Desert, is because the McCallum Theater is literally up the street. I might give someone some money. I'm just in that mood where I just don't feel like going anywhere. So that's totally okay. But anyway, I'm going to skip back here. We're going to go with the Firebirds game now. So yesterday, I left home about 11 a.m. I had to deal with some admin stuff and, last minute feed the cats before leaving, that kind of thing. And so I decided, and I looked at my my fuel tank, and I'm going, I could get there in one shot, but I didn't. Because one little hot tip, if you guys are ever going to Palm Springs, you're going that way on the 10, okay? If you stop at Casino Morongo and you go to the fuel stop over there, they have a very, very nice fuel stop there. That's the cheapest gas you're going to get on the 10 until you get to Blythe, okay? Or before you get to Palm Springs region, because that's on Indian land, so they don't gouge you, and they're really, really reasonable with the prices. Like, imagine this. I'm paying I think I paid like $3.39 for Supreme, like for premium gas, because I have to put premium gas in my Beamer. And I'm going, this is hella cheap. This is great. So I rode my only stop, because it's only 130 miles away. Only 130 miles? Yeah, when you're on a bike like what I have, it's only 130 miles. I filled up and went there. And I looked at my watch and I'm thinking, I need to eat lunch. So I had to stop at a very familiar place that I discovered during my travels filming, and that's called Norma's Italian Kitchen in Rancho Mirage. Rancho Mirage is very well known for being the playland of people like Frank Sinatra. I mean, you're not seeing that much anymore, but Norma's Italian Kitchen was something I discovered. They've been around since about 2015, and I discovered them before the pandemic when I was out there doing video work and driving for Lyft at the time, and I was picking up people in the area, and I needed to go eat dinner, and this is what came up. And since then, has always been a favorite of mine. It's a family-owned restaurant. They have great food. I'm a big fan of the eggplant parmesan. I wanted some tiramisu. They didn't have tiramisu, but I did make the lunch menu, so lunch costs only $20. I was like, yes, and it's a lot of food. I mean, and it came with an amazing bowl of cream of mushroom. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. I'm a big fan of Norma's. I like to shout them out because those small businesses, those are the things that you want to keep going. Those communities are very small, and it's just nice to see something that's outside the chain. Although I will have to admit, I may end up at Wingstop tonight, which is an 8-minute walk from my Airbnb. Due to the fact that most places, because it's a small community, a lot of the restaurants are usually closed by 8 or 9 p.m. Also because there's still a lot of old people here, so they're usually in bed by 8 or 9 p.m. Yeah, no, whatever happened to those young people? Don't worry, we'll take over. Give us a few minutes. So after that, kind of chilled a little bit. Checked into the Airbnb. This is a beautiful place, by the way. I'm really glad I chose this one. And, it's so quiet that parking my bike, no one's going to touch your shit. That's one of the beautiful things about going to Airbnb that's located inside of a house, especially in this area, is really nobody bothers you. Your stuff just sits there. No one touches anything because there's barely anyone here. I mean, parking is plentiful. It's like choose your spot. It's really nice. And even if I said this a bunch of times and everyone's like, let's go to Palm Desert right now, you wouldn't fill it up. It's nice. It really is. So after that, it's like, okay, I'm going to get to Acrisure. And I had to pick up some lotto tickets on the way because, at the time that I went, the Powerball was well over $1 billion. I think nobody won because at this point, during the time of this recording, it's like at $1.5 billion. I'm going, well, I'd like to get that, but I have a feeling it's probably going to go to some 90-year-old in Mississippi, knowing my luck. What the hell are you going to do with all that money? Just share it. No, just kidding. So anyway, get to Acrisure. I get there early. Get there probably around 5:30. Puck drops at 7. But I knew that there was going to be a lot of people there because it is the teddy bear toss game. But one of the things that I have issues with, and I really wonder when Acrisure is going to fix this because it's been like this for the last 4 seasons. The parking situation there in terms of payment is a bloody mess. Now, mind you, too, is that I've been coming to Firebirds games since their inaugural season. And some of the other issues that they had were when I went to the third game in their existence, is that getting out of the parking lot was a pain in the ass. I remember this very vividly. Now, getting out now has gotten a lot smoother, and there's no issue getting out of the parking lot now. But one of the things that really bothers me is that in order to not get gouged with your parking, you have to purchase the pass in advance online through ParkWiz, which is an app. ParkWiz is also used in several venues here in LA. So ParkWiz is something you just end up keeping it on your phone if you go to a bunch of concerts or whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not going to take my chances because if you purchase your pass on ParkWiz, parking's $20, which I mean, for a venue like that, and considering where how isolated it is from everything, that's fine. I can deal with that because there's no other parking options available for Acrisure because it is literally in the middle of nowhere facing the 10 freeway. It's really isolated because desert, right? So anyway, I'm thinking in my head, okay, I'm gonna be proactive and I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I get to the arena and they got the sign saying parking's $30. I roll up, I'm ready to show them my ParkWiz pass. They wave me through. And I'm sitting here going, wait, did they just waive parking for the teddy bear toss game and not say anything? So now I'm a bit annoyed. Granted, I'm just gonna eat that 20, but I'm thinking in my head, okay, Acrisure, if you are listening to this, which I doubt you will, okay? If you are planning to waive parking for a particular game that needs to be announced somewhere in at least two different venues, like social media venues, because there are people like me who don't want to pay $30 at the door, who come from far away. We would really like to know whether or not we have to chuck our money or you're going to let us in. Now, mind you, too, is that one of the playoff games that I attended, they were trying to do like a electronic parking, like there was scan your license plates and then charge you. I have a feeling that they discontinued that because I don't think it worked. But there was one point where it was broken and the parking was free. I did not have to pay. And at that time, parking was well over $35. So at least they fixed that part. Go fig. So there was that. I was like, what's the point of that? But anyway, we'll skip forward to the game. One of the cool things too is that the giveaway was a blanket. It was like a teddy bear toss throw, which I got to take home. That was a lot of fun. And I'm sitting in seats that were only 4 rows from glass, which wasn't bad. I mean, I bought these tickets. I usually use, I believe Game Time is what I usually use for the app for that. And I was probably a season ticket holder who wasn't going to show up to that game. So I ended up picking up these tickets. So the problem is that where they seated me facing the glass is where the protective netting is. So you're thinking in your head, because I like to think ahead, right? I'm thinking in my head, okay, if they score, then where the hell am I going to chuck these bears from? Well, the long answer would have been going back up the stairs and around the corner and then re-entering a section that wasn't blocked by the protective netting. Now, with the way that the Firebirds started this game, there wasn't going to be enough time to do any of this. It actually turned out, because the way a teddy bear toss works, if you haven't done this, is that you start chucking the bears once the home team scores the first goal of the game. Well, the Firebirds took no time on that one, and 2.5 minutes into the game, they struck first and scored. And that's where all the teddy bears started flying. You can look this up online if you want to watch the Coachella game from yesterday. But I'll tell you, they were chucking those bears, and they were everywhere. When they first started chucking them, because they were coming from behind me, I was getting hit by a bunch of stuffed animals. Absolute hilarity ensues. I mean, obviously, you're getting hit by stuffed animals. You're not getting hurt. But I'm sitting here going bonk, bonk, bonk. I'm just getting smacked by a bunch of bears. So, of course, I'm forwarding all the bears to the front. And where my seat's located, it's actually right near one of the rink doors. And so they had multiple people there receiving the bears. Like, we're just throwing them into the area near the rink entrance doors. And it was fine. It's okay that they didn't land on the ice because they were going to have to scoop those damn things up anyway. But I will say that the sight was pretty unreal. And the best part is that these bears and whatnot, whatever stuffed animals you wanted to throw, as long as they were brand new, right? They just kept chucking them and chucking them and chucking them. And some of them were so huge. I'm going, are you sure there's not a person stuffed in one of those? And it was great. There was a part of me when I was at IKEA that I wanted to go get the Dungelskog bear. Okay, that's the gigantic bear that's like massive. Okay, bad admission, but I did use part of my IKEA gift card to buy one for myself. I did not take it with me. It's now sitting at in my room. I just had to get the gigantic bear. Um, but I did pick up like 5 or 6 animals to throw in because I'm like, why not? All these animals are going to law enforcement, fire department. They're going to be used to comfort children who are dealing with situations or emergencies that they're stuck in. I'm like, cool. You know what? That's where they need to go. That's what's happening. So I just chucked a few things. I think I had a couple pandas. I got those bumblebees, the gigantic ones from IKEA, and then I think I picked up like 2 meerkats, but they were fun. So I had a lot of fun chucking these things and doing that. And that was a lot of teddy bears. Apparently, this was the third or fourth one they did. And from previous, according to some of the ushers that had been there for a while, they said that this was the fastest that they've ever scored to start the teddy bear toss. There was one point where the score they did not register a goal until the third period, and it was like a 1-0 game or something like that, something ridiculous. And so it took them until the third period to score. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm okay with it like 2.5 minutes in, because once that happens, you have a 30-minute delay. You're stuck. They have to scoop all those damn bears off. And it was also fun because as they were scooping up the bears, a police car rolled onto the ice with the full lights on and bears everywhere. I have to say, the production value too. There was a skit that they did involving Fuego, the mascot of the Firebirds, who's actually a giant Firebird himself, and very Home Alone style esque skit that they played on the big screen. That actually where I'm sitting was behind me, and so I had to turn around and watch it. I will say, production value wise, the Firebirds really get into it. And if you are a fan of the American Hockey League and minor league hockey in general, my personal opinion, between the Coachella Firebirds and the Henderson Silver Knights, probably have the best production value out of anyone for fan experience. Recommend watching a game, either one. I mean, I've inadvertently become a Firebirds fan as a result of it. I'm also a big fan of the Silver Knights as well, because you know what? You got to spread your love to everyone. I love my hockey, and that's where it is. So that's the other thing too about this whole Coachella Firebirds thing. I think that the success of the Firebirds, aside from the reasoning behind, well, one of the reasons behind it is that the Coachella Firebirds made it to the Calder Cup finals in their first 2 seasons. So their meteoric rise to stardom was a result of their very, very huge success as a team. But not just that, but just being able to embrace the culture of hockey. Granted that this was the very first professional sport of any sort to enter the Coachella Valley. And of all things that it had to be in one of the hottest places in California, in physically, it had to be freaking ice hockey. And somehow it grew this culture, like the sport and everything. Because I can tell you, okay, going back to 2022 when I went to my first game for the Firebirds, and so many people, no, not very many people had jerseys. People were like in their regular street clothes, and many of them didn't even know what the hell hockey was. I was sitting next to people who were asking me what the whistles were for, which I gladly answered for them. Because they were like, "Oh, you know so much about hockey. Do you play?" I'm like, "Yes. I live in Los Angeles and I play hockey, and I came here to see this because it's super, super cool and you guys are going to enjoy it." And we fast forward 4 years now, and you have Firebird stuff everywhere. You have a huge fan base. You have people who are just happy to be there and cheering on their team. It's also pretty cool when you realize that one of the color commentators is retired Oilers goalie and Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr, which, funny enough, the Firebirds were playing the Bakersfield Condors, who happened to be the farm team for the Edmonton Oilers. So yes, there were Edmonton Oiler fans, Bakersfield fans in the audience, and yes, the ones who were really OG knew who Grant Fuhr was, and it was really fun to watch people watching him do his thing. Because Grant Fuhr lives in this area too, which is not a shabby place to retire. I have to say. Now I understand. except for that whole thing where it's like blazing freaking hot for 3 months. I don't know if I could do that. But it's been fun. I hope to make more games. I really would like to make if the Firebirds make the playoffs this year. Um, it would be really nice to be able to hit a playoff game. And the crazy thing is, when these playoff games happen in April, temperatures start to get toward 90 degrees. So you're just sitting there going, it's hot right now. Yeah, it is. And we'll see where this goes. They're currently, I think, in their division. I think they're third in their division right now. Like there's a three-way tie for third. We'll see where this goes. Obviously, they still don't have the same star power that they did when they first started. But the whole thing about these AHL seasons and the AHL teams is that they are development teams. So you're not going to have the same consistency because the whole point of it is growth, but you're trying to be successful within that growth. So that's kind of where you are with that. That's why the roster changes every year, literally, because you've got prospects that come in, prospects that leave, prospects that get traded, that kind of thing. I am one of the more intriguing side stories to all of that was they were playing Bakersfield, and one of the players playing for Bakersfield is a defenseman. His name is Luke Prokop, and Luke Prokop has the notoriety, in a good way, of being the only openly gay hockey player who is signed to an NHL contract. That means that Luke Prokop could technically, if/when, I think it could possibly happen. If he gets called up to the NHL, that means that he will become the first openly gay player in NHL history to suit up and play in a game at the NHL level. So originally he was playing in the Nashville system, and then he got traded to Edmonton system. So we'll see where this goes. I'd love to see it. I know I am digressing because one of the hottest things right now is that whole heated rivalry book series that turned into a show that has now been approved for second season. So they're going to probably be pulling material out of the sixth book in the series called The Long Game. I'm not surprised. I'm enjoying the whole intrigue and curiosity regarding the simplicity of people just wanting to have normal lives and relationships in a place where it's almost taboo or awkward just by virtue of the people who are involved. So I would really love to see this kind of thing. But it was nice to see. That's the first time I had the chance to see Luke Prokop actually play. It did suck, though, that one of the goals that Coachella did score actually, I think, hit him and then went in the net. So that was a really bummer, defensive wise. He's a huge dude. He's a very, very tall guy. And yes, I've had that too, where when a puck would get shot, toward in my direction in toward the net, hit one of my guys, and then careen the wrong way where I have no chance of saving it. So it's happened before. Doesn't matter who you are, it's going to bounce off you. It's a pinball effect thing. Doesn't matter the level. So that was my story about the Firebirds. And this morning was very cool because one of my other traditions, because it was something that I discovered last year and I had to do it again, was to head over to for breakfast to head over to a place called Keaty's Fountain and Grill. Now this is all of the things that I'm about to talk about are going to be located on Highway 111, which is the gigantic highway that connects Palm Desert, Palm Springs, Cathedral City, all of that. Everything goes down California Highway 111. And so this is the Palm Desert section of Highway 111. And Keaty's is a old school diner that's been around, and pretty much this is the original location because they do have a location in Indio that's newer, but this is the OG one. And I just like it because it's just a good old standard American breakfast. And they have wonderful iced coffee. Their stuff is so good. And it's just a place where everybody knows your name and they're all friendly and it's good and it's tasty and it's quick. And so, I spent my time just enjoying Keaty's. Based on where I am staying right now, I ended up needing to walk a mile. But I think I need to walk more anyway. And so I walked that mile, kind of left this place about 7:30 and just kind of moseyed my way over and enjoyed that. And as I was walking down 111, which at, 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday, there's nothing going on. It's completely dead. I discovered that there were a few things that I was going to explore when I got back, when things opened again. And so I enjoyed my corned beef hash there, and I'll probably post pictures about it later because food porn. And after that, I headed back down the street, back toward my Airbnb on Highway 111, and discovered a independent motorcycle shop, literally called Motorcycle Stuff. And to my knowledge, and actually according to the owner, that is the only independent motorcycle shop in town. So, in terms of the motorcycle coverage for the desert cities, there is like one dealership in the desert cities region, but the next closest major dealerships are going to be, unfortunately, Chaparral Motorsports in San Bernardino, which is 60 miles away. And for the BMW people, it's going to be BMW Motorcycles of Riverside, which is even farther. And that sucks, especially for motorcyclists who go through the Palm Springs, Palm Desert region, that the reach isn't there. And so I popped in, said hi, and these very super cool guys. It's a two-man operation at the time I was there. The owner was there, and one of the mechanics was there, and very nice people. I have to say, it's a dying breed, these independent motorcycle shops that will work on everything and just have an overall just love for motorcycles in general. It's what you would expect from an independent place. Things all over the place, all sorts of bikes on the floor, some for sale, some being serviced. When I came over there, the mechanic was currently working on like a 2006 CBR 1000. But one of the things that I really appreciated about it was the amount of casualness and the fact that I came in as a rider. I told him, I said, "Look, I'm just walking today. My bike is parked, but I had to come in because I have no idea why it has taken me this long to finally realize you guys existed." And they were all super cool. I think I probably spent at least 2 hours there just talking and discussing my writing experience and also my time in the industry. But this was a place where the people there genuinely loved what they were doing. But one of the things that really struck me was when the owner, his name's Joe, he goes, "You'd be a great person to sell my shop to in a few years, based on like what you know and your experiences with writing." And I would say, in the back of my mind, what would be the chances of me moving to Palm Desert to run a motorcycle shop? At the point where I've been rejected from everything in terms of work, from everything from USC to fucking Whole Foods, that doesn't seem like a bad idea at this point. Just saying. You know, when I walked into that place and I really just loved the vibe of the place, the first thing that came in my head was being a former parts and apparel manager and an inventory control manager was what would be the first things I would do to improve this place? Like, what would I do to make this more attractive than it already is? Like, what would I do? And, there were many reasons why um, I left the motorcycle industry aside from getting a better job with better pay. But I have a feeling that all of the stuff regarding the misogyny and they're starting to fade. I say starting to. I can only hope that the more that women riders continue to break through and become the demographic that motorcycle companies want to cater to because we are buying all that shit and wanting to ride. There's a whole thing, the what's the trend right now? Women riders going into the sport, starting small and then getting gigantic bikes that in some ways dwarf the ones that the men are riding. You know, I will say this, okay? I rode here with my trusty R1200 GS. I have officially put 30,000 miles on that R1200 GS since I bought it in 2023. Those numbers are kind of lame compared to what I did before, but that's only because those 30,000 miles were not commuting miles, those were actually for fun. So the fact that I have been able to, despite working remotely for most of this time. I still managed to average 10,000 miles a year as a casual rider now. Yeah, I think I still ride quite a bit. And, there's a lot of women who do the same thing too. You want to obviously cater to who's going to be throwing the money, right? And, you know, having a bike like that is intimidating for a lot of people. And I'm trying to figure out where I was supposed to go with this. But I would be open to go returning to this whole motorcycle industry thing. It's just that the question is, where would be the spot? What would I end up doing? And I don't know, maybe in my own fantasy world, fixing bikes, serving coffee, saving rats at the same time. What if the rat cafe meant both animal rats and rat bikes? What if that were the case? Maybe it doesn't hurt to dream, but do I really want to subject myself to the dryness of this place? Like weather-wise, like everything's peeling. So I spent about 2 hours there. I had a great time. I actually left my business card, well, my rescue card, just in case. I don't know. I actually told him, I said, I'm going to leave you my information, for future considerations. I, I, I just throw things into the wind and see what sticks, right? And it was really cool though, because I also found out that tomorrow, because I check out tomorrow, and I start moseying my way back home, which I'm not in a hurry to do. I may end up in San Diego County for a little bit, do whatever. But there is a coffee shop that's been around for a couple of years on Highway 111. It's called Veraco Coffee Roasters. And I saw this place because I was walking down 111 on the same side of the street, and I passed this place, and I noticed that they were doing a get together, like in the front of the coffee shop. It's a really small place, and they had outdoor seating because you can do that in Palm Desert because the weather's always perfect. And I found out that they were doing a meetup of cancer survivors. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, that's a pretty cool meetup. I'm like, okay. They had a banner up and everything, and they had the seats, like they had rows of like around tables and stuff, so people could chat with each other and all that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so when I'm over at motorcycle stuff, the mechanic, his name's Alex, he goes, yeah, so tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 10, they're going to be doing a get together of motorcycles at that coffee shop on Sunday. If you're still in town. I said, yeah, that's the day I check out. He goes, yeah, no, why don't you go hang out over there? And I looked them up, and I realized something. Veraco Coffee Roasters is Filipino owned, first off, which puts a smile on my face for obvious reasons. But here's the crazy part: the coffee that they're serving is Philippine grown. Yeah, they import all of the coffee beans from the Philippines. And yeah. And so I'm all like, wait, do you mean to tell me that I'm going to go tomorrow to a motorcycle event with at a Filipino coffee shop and potentially just hang out with a bunch of motorcycle people while drinking Filipino coffee? Like, I don't know how much cooler that's going to get for me, but that's literally what happened. And so I might bump into those guys because they said they were going to show up tomorrow, and I don't mind staying for that entire 7 to 10 because I have nowhere to go. It's beautiful to not have an agenda. And if you've been listening so far, yes, I have been talking straight for an hour, and I'm pretty good at it. Yes, and there's a dog behind me. I'm kind of laughing about this because a little bit about this entire Airbnb space is that um, it's a kind of a cordoned off section of the house where the entrance is technically a gate leading to the backyard, but it's like turned into this isolated space. Well, the owners of this place have this dog, and every time I enter the door or the dog notices something interesting, it starts to bark. It's also one of the reasons why I chose to do my vlog inside, because if I were outside, they probably the owners probably would have heard everything that I have said, which obviously isn't a bad thing, but it'd probably be kind of awkward. It's like, is that lady doing a vlog in my Airbnb space? I said, yeah, the lady's doing a vlog in your Airbnb space. Sorry, not sorry, right? But anyway, that's pretty cool. So I try to stretch out what I do during my time. Every year I do the Palm Desert Run, as I call it, because I spend most of my time out here on somewhere around Highway 111. It's um, it's unique. I think that the reason why I chose not to be on a motorcycle today, which is this is probably the longest that I've not been on a bike during any iteration of this type of vacation, is because spending so much time behind the wheel, behind the handlebars of a vehicle, period. I think that having been in a situation where I am literally passing uh, multiple things and getting somewhere super quickly has kind of made me think that it might be in my best interest to slow down a little bit and see what really is in between all of these streets and all these places. And I think that today was one of those where it really did pay off in a beautiful way. On my way back from the motorcycle shop, and I've been playing Pokemon Go while I'm doing it. I'm finding it funny. So my former boss at USC is also a Pokemon Go player, and we ended up connecting as friends on Pokemon Go when I was still employed there. And I think I'm finding it funny because he does have property in Palm Springs that I'm sending him Pokemon Go gifts from sections of Palm Desert, just as a kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying, I am in your area right now. I think I find that funny. So on my way back, I walked over to a long-standing nail salon, got myself a nice little manicure since I'm just kind of chilling out. Ended up talking to, and yes, Vietnamese lady, as expected, who used to, of all things, work at a nail salon near USC. I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh, geez. And so we were talking about that and how it's just so much quieter here in Palm Desert, and that sometimes she goes to Orange County, and even then, like, the traffic in Orange County isn't even as bad as it is in LA, and I can actually agree with that. Um, Traffic is better mitigated in Orange County due to I think they probably watched enough of what was going on in LA and they just decided to fix that. But sometimes someone's got to be a front runner, and with all of my stories of going into the Hollywood Hills and many many streets that exceed 35% grade, where you're pretty much like vertical trying to get up a hill, yeah, it's not surprising at all. So yeah, got that done. Got myself a Starbucks. Moseyed my way back. I'm kind of laughing is that Palm Springs is a major destination, and this was something that was a serious like issue for the desert cities. Is that during the winter time, this is when all of the snowbirds from Canada come down, and it has been reported that economy has been kind of slow for this region due to the fact that many Canadians are choosing to skip this year due to obvious things happening, um, at the federal level. And I'm like, I'm not surprised. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, rule number one about Canadian relations with the United States is you do not piss off the Canadians. Okay. It's one thing to kick their ass in hockey, which is what the US women have done severely. It's one thing to kick their ass in hockey, but you don't do it to where they don't want to visit us because you forget that these people have money, especially down here. I'm on my motorcycle. I'm in Rancho Mirage, and I'm sitting at a light, and next to me is a freaking dude in a Rolls Royce. There's a Canadian flag sticker on his window, on the side passenger window. And that is a Canadian in a Rolls Royce contributing to our economy right now because apparently he's got a Rolls Royce in California. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not Rancho Mirage money, okay? I'm barely Palm Desert money. But trust me, I'm going to work very hard to not get to a point where I'm 29 Palms money. If you know, you know. So, just in closing, I'm just very glad that I'm here this week. If you haven't seen the forecast, there will be a major Pineapple Express level storm going through Southern California, Christmas time. Now, I return to work on Christmas Day. That's Thursday, the 25th. And I will be working the morning of Christmas. Now, I don't know if I'm even going to get any freaking passengers. I think it's going to be slow as hell on Christmas Day, unless there are people using that to go to the airport like they did on Thanksgiving Day when I picked up people to take to LAX. Um, I'm not looking forward to it. This is going to be the first time working for this particular company. Not the first time. I haven't. I've been through floods in Orange County driving for Lyft and Uber. It's not a horrible thing, but this will be the first time that I'll be driving in the rain for this company. So hopefully, things will be okay. This will be the first time that I will be testing out um, how these Tesla Model Ys deal with the rain. Hopefully, they're better with rain than your average Cybertruck who can't get through a car wash properly without malfunctioning. So we'll see where this goes. I mean, I have been lucky enough that I have avoided driving during the rainstorms we've had so far. Um, I have to say too is that this week, these 9 days that I have off, it has been a nice relief from a straight month of all of this driving. It's given me way too much to think about. It's given me way too much material to deliver online, and yeah, I'm totally good with you know trying to avoid this for as long as I could. Um, as I mentioned too, is like I know I took a hit for 1 week of pay, but I will reiterate what my cousin has told me over the years is that you can always make more money, but you cannot make more time. And I am reminded of this every time I think about the people who did what they could to live the best life that they could while they were still here. You know, we all need to do that. It's I mean, I'm not always thinking about my mortality when I'm having a good time, okay? I'm not one of those people. But when you're doing these things and you're creating the memories and you're doing all of this, there is something to be said about just enjoying the moment. I used to not be this way. I always thought about this goal of this and that, and I think mainly was because I was continuously plagued by outside forces that were forcing me to try to go elsewhere, and I spent a lot of that time fighting those forces. And now that I'm in a point in my life and where I no longer have to fight those outside forces, and that many of these decisions are mine, um, I think I tend to put a lot more value into the time that I spend doing stuff like this. Walking around aimlessly, sipping an iced coffee on the way to a motorcycle shop just to talk shop with people, or just meeting people, or just noticing what's out here. You know, Tomorrow, I believe, is the longest night of the year. Um, it's 4:25 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and the sun is probably setting in about 15 minutes. This is one of the shortest days of the year. And I feel like even going through the shortest day of the year today, I, I've had more fun just going through this little adventure today and then sitting here and sharing it here because you can't make any of this up. So in closing thought, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their weekend and that you spend the time, take a few minutes to spend the time and think about what you want to enjoy and go do it. If not for me or yourself, for the fact that there might be a chance you won't be able to do it again. So, be good out there. And to Germany, good night. It's way too, it's like 1 a.m. over there. So, but I hope everyone is well. If you have thoughts on this, drop me a line. I am enjoying playing around with technology and doing all these things, and Surprisingly, as much as people malign Spectrum, I haven't had a single hiccup in almost an hour and 30 minutes talking. So, hey, I guess Spectrum's good for something today. Anyway, take care, everyone. I'm going to go see Barry Manilow in about 3.5 hours. And, can't smile without you. See you soon.